fitting that Lori asked me to come up here. I was door knocking for the coordinated campaign last November, and I was door knocking in Burtonsville, which is part of District 14, which I represent. And I was door knocking, and I was trying to get people out to vote. And I was talking to a young lady and said, you know, it's really important that you come out and vote. And I heard someone in the background saying, "Is that you? Is that you?" And ran out. She says, "Congressman Sarbanes, I thought that was you." So I immediately said, "Well, thank you. It's good to be here. Make sure you come out and vote." And I called John Sarbanes immediately and said, "By the way, you were door knocking in Burtonsville?" So if John Sarbanes says, "I'm sorry I was late," just say, "No, you started at 7:20. But I did want to also recognize Lillian Cruz, who's a dear friend of mine, who works as a senior advisor to U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen. So it's interesting. The state of Maryland is in a unique position because I believe we're sort of on the front line when it comes to opposing the Trump administration for a number of reasons. One is Montgomery County, Prince George's County. This region is home to a large number of federal workers. So when you hear the president talk about shrinking those agencies, what he's really talking about is people losing their jobs in this area. I don't see what that makes America great again. I just see it makes America look for jobs again. This past legislative session we had a number of challenges. First is all the pressure we were getting when it came to immigration, and then quite frankly, when Sharon Dooley asked, what's an issue important to you all, and you raised your hand when it came to education. Well, we've got interesting things going on in the federal government where you have the President and the Secretary of Education basically saying that they're going to move public schools to be privatized. So myself and Delegate Eric Lukey and Delegate Pam Queen, who's walking in right now, and Delegate Ann Kaiser were on the forefront. What we did was we passed legislation called Protect Our Schools. And what that did was that said, look, A is we want there to be more of an emphasis on the school environment, other indicators, and not school testing. And second is if you've got schools, especially in Baltimore City and throughout the state, that are failing, the first thing you should do is not privatize them. Not privatize them. We want to make sure that we're investing in our public schools, and if there's something not working, well, we should fix it. It's investing in our educators, it's investing in our students, and it's also making sure that we have input from the parents and the educators who were involved. Another thing that we did was we gave the Attorney General of the state of Maryland powers to sue the federal government. Federal government when you see when you have a five-year-old Marylander, 2 years older than my youngest son, who's detained at Dulles Airport because they're saying that he's not a U.S. citizen when he is, and they're not letting him back into the country. So those are the type of things that we worked with Attorney General Frosch on. And quite frankly, a week ago I tweeted out Governor Hogan wasn't happy with me and my colleagues in terms of making sure that we're protecting Marylanders against the Trump administration. Well, thank goodness we did. And quite frankly, that has a lot to do with you all. We heard you. We are on the front lines with you, and we're working hard to make sure that your voices are heard. And it goes well beyond education, and it goes also to make sure that we're protecting places like Planned Parenthood when it comes to making sure. Regardless of what people are saying, this is making sure that women have access to health services when it comes to cancer screenings, things that are important. And we wanted to make sure that in Maryland's budget, we have money that is going to go toward making sure that women have access to health care and making sure that this continues to be a priority. One of the good things about the state of Maryland is we've got a great representation. Congressman Sarbanes has been a leader in Annapolis when it comes to public financing and doing what he can against the Trump administration. But but your voices are as important as ever now. We need your activism. We need you to continue writing us. I mean, what's interesting is my wife Jenny went to the Women's March. I was with the kids, but the next day I went into DC, and someone from California asked me, Craig, what do I do? Because my representatives believe what I believe. They share my values and they share my opinions. Should I even waste my time writing them? I said, yes, write them, because we always hear the negative things. We don't hear all the times the things that we're doing right. And quite frankly, if I hear from 100 of my constituents on an issue that's important to them, I can bring that to the Senate floor, and my colleagues like Delegate Queen and Delegate Lukey and Delegate Kaiser can bring it to the House floor and say, we've heard from our constituents and this is important to them. A lot of legislators make that up, but sometimes we actually... But in this case, we don't want it. For us, it's important. But and it's also important for us to continue working with our federal partners. We're going to try to do what we can to back them up in the State House. But it's also a matter of protecting our priorities. It's the sign up. But yeah, so it's about moving forward, and this past legislative session, we've tried to do what we can also in terms of bringing back money for school construction. And we were proud that we were able to bring back $300 million for school construction projects throughout the state, many around this area, and especially Baltimore City as well. But really is a team effort, and it's good that we have U.S. Senator Cardin and Van Hollen now in the U.S. Senate, because they're on the front line in the United States Congress, and we're on the front line in the State House. But what I'd like to do is, I don't think, is the congressman here yet? Okay, so I can answer a few questions if anyone has some questions before.
Well, are you going to push again for the removal of parental rights for rapists?
Well, what's interesting was I was talking to Ms. Engler earlier, and I mean, this is something that is completely unacceptable. Sure. So basically, there's been legislation that's been offered over the last 9 years in the General Assembly that that would allow, in certain circumstances, parental rights for rapists. And it's been an issue that's been in front of the Maryland General Assembly for the last 9 years, and it's passed. But what's happened is the details haven't been ironed out at the end, and it's been sent to what's called conference committees, which is negotiating committees. But it's completely unacceptable. And this is really where your voices matter, especially on those committees. But my colleagues and I are going to be doing what we can to try to get through.
Who supports that?
What's that?
Who supports parental rights for rapists?
I don't, and I think it comes down to just that they're getting too bogged down in the details and not look at, hey, we just need to get this fixed.
It could be that big a constituency.
What's that?
It couldn't be that big a constituency.
Well, again, I mean, they don't speak for me, so.
What about rape kits, the backlog of testing rape kits?
Yes, I know we've, when I was on the House Budget Committee, I know we expanded funding for that. I met with the president recently of MedStar Montgomery Hospital. If it was up to me, I'd like that opportunity in every hospital in terms of making sure that if anybody is a victim of sexual assault, that they would be able to go to a hospital and get those opportunities. But we're starting to expand it, but we haven't gone far enough yet. Yeah.
Hi, I come down from Baltimore City, and I know we've talked a lot about the Home Act and housing opportunities. As a person with a disability, accessible, affordable, integrated housing is very, very difficult to come by. This thing's been defeated a few times. What can we do to move this forward next time?
A couple things. One is, sure, so it was talking about making sure that
About a little bit more than 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. The question was, with those folks with developmental differences, sometimes they have difficulty with access to housing and other opportunities like that. And there's been legislation in the past that's been offered. One of the things that I sponsored called Achieving Better Life Experience It was something that Congressman, at that time, Congressman Van Hollen got through the House of Representatives, and nothing passes the House of Representatives, so that was great. But what it does is, has anyone heard of college savings plans? Okay. So what this does is this offers, this is basically the equivalent of a college savings plan, but it would allow individuals or guardians with developmental differences to have savings accounts that doesn't cut against their public benefits. So because right now,
That has nothing to do with the Home Act, though. The Home Act increases the availability of female to use Section 8 housing vouchers.
right, well, a couple things. One is, very quick, so the point about achieving better life experiences, one of the things that achieving better life experience allows is with those savings accounts, those be allowed to use for housing. So that was my point there in terms of that money would be able to be used for rent and other things like that. But no, I think there's a number of things that we need to do to expand services. One of them is around housing opportunities. Others is actually waiting lists, cutting down on waiting lists. We're to get money into the crisis resolution.
But the waiting list can't be shortened if there aren't enough buildings that are physically accessible. There is a huge shortage of building units that are accessible. We have waiting lists, miles and miles long, years long. People can't get off of those lists because there's only one unit here and one unit over here, and that's it.
My wheelchair weighs 300 pounds. I can't carry up a flight of stairs.
So I think first of all, there's a lot of challenges, and it's certainly not made easier by the current administration, both federally and in the state. But we have a $1.1 billion capital budget, and a lot of that is dictated by the governor, but also the members of the General Assembly. So I'd love to work with you to figure out where we can take buildings that need to be renovated and retrofit them to increase housing opportunities.
When are we going to be able to break free of their terms to allow us to actually be Democrats?
Well, I think, one of the things that I feel like Indivisible really does well is we have people of different thought processes and maybe even political leanings, but we're focused on one objective, and that's to make sure that our federal government's working for us and making sure that people are protected. I think that it takes all kinds in the Senate and the House. I feel like there's always more that we need to do in terms of, we did a lot when it came to earned sick leave. There's still a lot more that we need to do. But I'll do what I can to work with my colleagues to get those done. Yeah.
I'm really worried about Attorney General Sessions sort of restarting the quote-unquote war on drugs, and it was ineffective the first time. It's quote-unquote, and we know that substance abuse and addiction, we can't arrest our way out of those, and the racial injustice that's involved in these is astounding. What can happen at the state level to protect Maryland against that renewed effort?
Well, I think one of the things that we're very sensitive on in the state of Maryland is who's being arrested when it comes to these, when it comes to drugs. And two is also addiction. We've seen an increase. I think right now, 6 out of 10 people. And Delegate Queen is on the House Judiciary Committee, so she. Well, what we've done with the budget is we've tried to do what we can to give more opportunities for drug treatment. I think we don't want a war on people, but we want a war on addiction. But I don't know if Delegate Queen has anything to add for her jurisdiction.
Yeah, so I basically want to add to it, serving on the Judiciary Committee in Annapolis, that is the approach that we're trying to take with the Justice Reinvestment Act, that we look at drugs from the standpoint of it being a medical issue. And so we're looking at opportunities to provide more beds for treatment for folks. And so I can tell you at the state level, we understand that issue. We do not want to see ourselves going to arresting people out of this issue. We know that that does not work. And so we have been trying to take steps in making sure that we understand that there is a balance between drug addiction from a standpoint of a medical issue and how it ties to criminal issues, and making sure we keep the right balance there. So I think we at the state kind of know and are looking at protecting folks for that.
Mr. Humphrey think of all of this? He seems to be pushing back against most democratic sort of bills that come into him. How much of a fight do you guys have on your hands?
Well, it's from a standpoint of our House is very much still all Democratic and majority Democratic in the Senate as well, although the Senate has a little bit more challenges. I think what we're seeing that the governor tries to be very neutral and not cause any kind of, take on any sort of fights that may be controversial. So it has been hard to kind of get certain things through. But the fact that we have, again, started this approach for, in terms of, like I said, justice reinvestment, that was passed last session. And we're still growing and adding to that and expanding that. So far, we haven't had a big problem with getting those sort of things through because we have pretty much a very democratic House that kind of supports that and sees the problem.
So I think we'll take one more question since the Congressman is here, and then